Some people will spend their entire lives searching for someone who loves them for who they are, not for what they have. Ethan Carter used to think that sounded like a line from a greeting card. After all, he was one of the most successful CEOs in America, the founder of a company worth billions, a man whose face occasionally appeared in business magazines and financial news segments. Yet after years of carefully arranged introductions, exclusive events, and countless blind dates, he had come to believe that genuine connection was far rarer than success. On this particular Friday evening, Ethan sat alone at a table near the center of an upscale restaurant in downtown Chicago. As always, he wore simple clothes. A plain navy button-down shirt, a modest watch, no luxury accessories, no chauffeur waiting outside, no signs of the fortune he possessed. His date had arrived 20 minutes earlier, and within 10 minutes of sitting down, she had already asked where he lived, what kind of car he drove, and whether he owned property. Ethan answered honestly, though not completely. The conversation grew colder with every response. Then came the final question. "So what exactly do you do?" she asked. "I manage a small company," Ethan replied with a polite smile. Her expression changed immediately. The disappointment was impossible to miss. She leaned back in her chair, glanced toward the entrance, and sighed. A few minutes later, she excused herself and never returned. Ethan watched through the window as she stepped into a rideshare and disappeared into the city traffic. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even surprised. Mostly, he felt tired. The waiter approached carefully and asked whether he wanted dessert. Ethan shook his head and reached for the check. That was when a sudden burst of laughter from a nearby table caught his attention. A little girl, no older than 8, sat across from a woman with tired eyes and a warm smile. The child was trying to balance a bread roll on top of a straw wrapper while the woman unsuccessfully attempted to stop giggling. For a moment, the sound filled the room with something Ethan hadn't felt in a long time. Joy. The bread roll promptly rolled off the table. The little girl groaned dramatically. Ethan couldn't help smiling. "Mission failed," he said from his table. The girl pointed at the runaway bread roll. "It betrayed me." Ethan laughed. "That happens more often than you'd think." The woman looked over. "Sorry if we're being loud." "Not at all," Ethan replied. "It's actually the most entertaining thing I've seen all evening." The woman smiled politely before turning back to her daughter. Most people would have left it there. Ethan almost did. Then he noticed something unexpected. The woman checked her phone and her smile faded. Only for a second, but it was enough. The kind of expression people wore when carrying burdens they didn't want anyone else to see. Ethan recognized it because he wore one himself. As he stood to leave, the little girl suddenly waved at him. "Good luck with your next date," she called out. Ethan chuckled. "Thanks. I think I might need it." The woman laughed softly. "Trust me, you're not the only one." Ethan paused. Something about those words made him wonder what story she was carrying. And for the first time in years, he found himself wanting to find out. The image of that woman and her daughter stayed in Ethan's mind all weekend, which irritated him more than he cared to admit. He was used to solving billion-dollar problems, negotiating acquisitions, and making decisions that affected thousands of employees. Yet somehow he found himself wondering about a little girl who had declared that a bread roll had betrayed her. By Monday morning, he was sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor of his company headquarters, listening to executives discuss quarterly projections. Numbers filled the screens. Charts covered the walls. Everyone in the room waited for his opinion. Normally, Ethan noticed everything. Today, his attention drifted. During a break, his assistant Rachel stepped into the room. "You have lunch with investors at noon," she said. "Then the board review at 3. Ethan nodded before asking a question that surprised even him. "Do you know a woman named Olivia Bennett?" Rachel blinked. "Should I?" Ethan immediately regretted asking. Never mind. But later that afternoon, curiosity won. By evening, he found himself walking past the same restaurant where they had met. He told himself it was coincidence. It was not. The restaurant was quiet. Olivia was not there. Ethan felt strangely disappointed and almost turned around when he spotted a small bookstore across the street. Through the front window, he recognized the same little girl sitting at a reading table with a stack of books nearly a foot high. Ethan stepped inside. The girl looked up instantly. "Hey, it is the bad date guy." He laughed. "That is really how you remember me?" "It is memorable." Before Ethan could answer, Olivia emerged from another aisle carrying several books. Surprise flashed across her face. "Well, This is unexpected. I was about to say the same thing, Ethan replied. Olivia shook her head with a smile. Lily, do not give strangers nicknames. He is not a stranger anymore, Lily said confidently. I know he has terrible luck. Ethan laughed again, and to his surprise, Olivia joined him. For the next 20 minutes, they talked beside the children's section. Nothing dramatic. Nothing life-changing. They discussed favorite books, Chicago weather, and Lily's obsession with mystery stories. Yet the conversation felt easier than most of the business meetings Ethan attended in an entire month. There was no pressure, no hidden agenda, no attempt to impress. Eventually, Olivia checked the time and sighed. We should get going. Lily looked disappointed. Can we see him again? Olivia looked embarrassed. Ethan felt an unexpected hope rise inside him. Maybe, he said carefully. Olivia studied him for a moment. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a receipt. Using a pen, she wrote down a phone number. If you ever want recommendations for mystery books, she said. Ethan accepted the paper. Only for book recommendations? Olivia smiled. Let us start there. As she and Lily walked toward the door, Ethan glanced at the number in his hand. For reasons he could not fully explain, that small piece of paper felt more valuable than contracts worth millions. What he did not know was that Olivia was carrying worries far heavier than a bookstore bag full of novels, and very soon, those worries would pull both of them into a story neither one saw coming. 3 days passed before Ethan finally sent a text message. He stared at the number Olivia had written on the receipt far longer than he would have admitted to anyone. The message itself was simple. He asked for a mystery book recommendation. 5 minutes later, a reply arrived. Olivia suggested a novel and added that Lily would probably be disappointed if he chose anything else. Ethan smiled at his phone like a teenager, something Rachel immediately noticed during a morning meeting. You seem unusually cheerful today, she said. Ethan ignored the comment, but the truth was impossible to deny. For the first time in years, he was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with business. Over the next several weeks, the conversations became more frequent. Sometimes they exchanged messages about books, sometimes about restaurants, sometimes about completely ordinary things. Ethan learned that Olivia worked weekdays as an office administrator for a small logistics company and spent several evenings each week handling bookkeeping for a neighborhood business to earn extra income. Every hour of her schedule seemed accounted for. Every dollar had a purpose. One Saturday afternoon, Olivia agreed to meet him at a public park where Lily was participating in a community reading event. Ethan arrived carrying lemonade for everyone. The weather was perfect, with temperatures in the low 70s and a light breeze moving through the trees. Lily immediately launched into a detailed explanation of a detective story she was writing. Ethan listened attentively, asking questions and treating every plot twist as if it were the most important business proposal in the world. Olivia watched the interaction quietly. Most adults smiled politely at children before looking for an excuse to leave the conversation. Ethan did the opposite. He paid attention. Later, while Lily joined a group activity nearby, Olivia and Ethan sat on a bench overlooking the field. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Ethan noticed her checking a banking application on her phone. Her expression tightened before she locked the screen. Everything okay? He asked gently. Olivia forced a smile. Just life. Ethan waited. Eventually she sighed. Rent went up again this year. Groceries cost more every month. Lily needs new school supplies soon. Nothing dramatic. Just normal problems. Ethan nodded, though the words hit him harder than she realized. The amount she was worrying about was less than what some executives spent entertaining clients in a single evening. Yet Olivia carried those burdens alone without complaining. You make it sound easy, Ethan said. Olivia laughed softly. Trust me, it is not. Before Ethan could respond, Lily came running back with a certificate from the event. Her excitement instantly changed the mood. Olivia hugged her daughter proudly, and Ethan felt something unfamiliar settle over him. Peace. It was a feeling he never found in penthouses, boardrooms, or private flights. As the afternoon ended, Ethan offered to walk them to their car. That was when he noticed it. Olivia's vehicle was nearly 20 years old, with faded paint and a dashboard warning light glowing through the windshield. She saw him looking and shrugged. It still gets us where we need to go. Ethan smiled, but concern lingered in his mind. Because for the first time, he was beginning to understand how hard Olivia was working just to keep everything together, and he could not shake the feeling that something in her carefully balanced world was about to break. Over the next month, Ethan found himself rearranging parts of his life in ways that would have seemed impossible only a few months earlier. He still attended board meetings. He still reviewed reports and negotiated contracts. But now there were evenings reserved for bookstore visits, weekend community events, and long conversations with Olivia that somehow felt more important than any business deal waiting on his desk. What surprised him most was how natural everything felt. Olivia never treated him differently. She never asked about his income. She never seemed interested in status, connections, or influence. In fact, she often teased him for being overly serious. One Saturday morning, they met at a neighborhood farmer's market. Lily raced ahead from booth to booth, while Olivia compared prices with the precision of someone stretching every dollar as far as possible. Ethan quietly observed as she calculated purchases in her head before placing items back on the table when they exceeded her budget. She never complained. She simply adjusted. Watching her made Ethan realize how different their worlds truly were. Later that afternoon, the three of them shared lunch at a small outdoor cafe. Lily talked nonstop about school, books, and a science project she was building. Halfway through the meal, she looked directly at Ethan. "You know, you show up more than most people." Olivia nearly dropped her drink. "Lily, what?" Lily asked innocently. "It is true." Ethan smiled gently. "I will take that as a compliment." Lily nodded. "It is one." Olivia looked away, slightly embarrassed, but Ethan could tell her daughter's words had touched her. As the weeks continued, he learned more pieces of Olivia's story. Her marriage had ended years earlier. Since then, she had built a stable life for Lily almost entirely on her own. Every decision revolved around her daughter. Every sacrifice had a purpose. The more Ethan learned, the more he admired her resilience. Yet there were moments when he noticed signs of exhaustion she tried hard to hide. One evening, after helping Lily prepare for a school presentation, Ethan walked Olivia to her apartment building. The property was older but well-maintained. As they reached the entrance, Olivia hesitated before speaking. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you spend so much time with us?" Ethan was not prepared for the question. Olivia continued before he could answer. "Most people are busy. They say they care, then disappear. You keep showing up." For a moment, Ethan considered telling her the truth about who he really was. The words almost came out. Instead, he gave the only honest answer he felt safe sharing. "Because I like being here." Olivia studied his face carefully. Then she smiled. "That is a good answer." As Ethan walked back toward his car, he felt both relieved and guilty. The connection between them was growing stronger every day. So was the secret he carried. And unknown to both of them, a problem was already developing that would soon test everything they had begun to build together. The problem arrived on a rainy Tuesday evening. Ethan was finishing a conference call when his phone lit up with a message from Olivia. It was brief, far shorter than usual. She apologized and said she would need to cancel their plans for the week. Something about the wording immediately felt wrong. Ethan called her, but the call went to voicemail. An hour later, she finally answered. Her voice sounded tired, more tired than he had ever heard before. After a few gentle questions, the truth slowly emerged. The small logistics company where she worked was reducing staff hours due to financial difficulties. Her position had not disappeared completely, but her income had been cut significantly. At the same time, her landlord had announced another rent increase beginning the following month. Olivia tried to laugh it off, insisting she would figure it out like she always did, but Ethan could hear the strain beneath every word. The next day, he found himself unable to focus. During an executive presentation, numbers flashed across massive screens while senior leaders discussed revenue forecasts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet Ethan kept thinking about Olivia sitting at her kitchen table, trying to balance bills. By evening, he made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not something that would expose his secret. He simply wanted to help. The challenge was doing it without making Olivia feel indebted or suspicious. A few days later, Lily called him with exciting news. Her school science project had been selected for a regional academic showcase. Ethan congratulated her enthusiastically. Then Lily casually mentioned that participation required materials, transportation, and registration fees. She immediately added that her mother was already stressed about the costs. Ethan thanked her for sharing and ended the call. The following morning, The school principal received an anonymous donation designated specifically for student academic programs. Every participant's fees would now be covered. When Olivia learned about the unexpected funding, she called Ethan to tell him how fortunate the timing was. Ethan listened quietly and pretended to be just as surprised as she was. "Sometimes good things happen," he said. Olivia laughed softly. "I guess they do." But the financial pressure did not disappear completely. One evening, Ethan arrived at her apartment building and noticed her old car refusing to start. Olivia sat behind the wheel looking frustrated while Lily waited beside the curb. After several attempts, the engine finally came to life. Olivia forced a smile, but Ethan could see the concern in her eyes. Later that night, he contacted a trusted mechanic through an intermediary. Within days, a local community assistance program unexpectedly selected Olivia for free vehicle repairs. Once again, she considered it a stroke of luck. Ethan never corrected her. For a while, the small victories seemed enough. Olivia smiled more often. Lily remained excited about school. Yet beneath the surface, larger problems were still forming. And as Ethan watched the people he cared about struggle, he began realizing something dangerous. Helping from a distance was becoming harder every day. Because the more important Olivia and Lily became to him, the more difficult it was to keep pretending to be someone he was not. Autumn arrived in Chicago, bringing cooler air and shorter days. On the surface, life seemed to be improving. Lily's science project earned praise at the regional showcase. Olivia's repaired car continued running reliably, and Ethan found himself spending more time with them than ever before. Yet the closer he became to their small family, the more complicated his secret felt. One Thursday afternoon, Ethan invited Olivia and Lily to a public art festival downtown. They spent hours walking through exhibits, listening to local musicians, and sampling food from vendors. It was the kind of ordinary day Ethan had rarely experienced despite all his wealth. He enjoyed every minute of it. As evening approached, they stopped at a coffee stand near the center of the event. While Olivia and Lily searched for an open table, Ethan stepped aside to pick up their order. That was when he heard a familiar voice. "Mr. Carter?" Ethan froze. Standing only a few feet away was Daniel Mercer, the chief executive officer of a company his corporation had recently acquired. Daniel looked shocked to see him dressed casually and standing alone with paper coffee cups. "I did not expect to see you here," Daniel said. Ethan immediately glanced toward Olivia and Lily. Fortunately, they were still several yards away. "Daniel," Ethan said quietly, "good to see you." The executive looked confused. "Are you attending the business conference nearby?" "No." Daniel opened his mouth to continue, but Ethan interrupted gently. "I would appreciate some discretion." To his credit, Daniel understood immediately. "Of course," he said. "My apologies." The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds, but it left Ethan uneasy. For the first time, his two worlds had nearly collided. Later that evening, Olivia noticed his distracted expression. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just work," Ethan replied. Olivia studied him carefully. "You always say that." Ethan smiled weakly. "Maybe I work too much." "Definitely," Lily answered before Olivia could respond. The comment made them all laugh, temporarily easing the tension. But the near encounter continued bothering him. During the following week, similar moments began happening more frequently. A financial magazine left behind in a restaurant contained an article featuring Ethan's company. A passing businessman seemed to recognize him before second-guessing himself. Even Rachel warned him that his public visibility was increasing because of several upcoming corporate announcements. Each incident felt like another crack forming in the wall he had built around his identity. Then came the moment Ethan feared most. One evening, Olivia arrived late to meet him at a bookstore. She seemed unusually quiet. After several minutes, she pulled out her phone and showed him a photograph. It was a picture of a corporate charity gala that had appeared online earlier that day. The image was blurry, taken from a distance, but Ethan immediately recognized himself standing near the stage. Olivia looked from the photograph to his face. "This might sound strange," she said slowly, "but does this person look a little like you?" Ethan felt his heart sink. Because for the first time since meeting Olivia, he realized the truth might not stay hidden much longer. For several long seconds, Ethan stared at the photograph on Olivia's phone while trying to keep his expression calm. The image was not clear enough to confirm anything, yet it was clear enough to raise questions. Olivia watched him carefully. It is probably nothing, she said. I just thought the resemblance was strange. Ethan forced a small smile. There are a lot of people who wear suits and stand on stages. Olivia laughed softly. That is true. The conversation moved on, but neither of them completely forgot about it. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself standing at a crossroads he had avoided for months. Every instinct told him that he should tell Olivia the truth before someone else did. Yet another part of him feared what might happen once she learned everything. Not because she would care about his money. Deep down, he knew she would not. What frightened him was the possibility that she would see every moment they had shared through a different lens. The following Saturday, Lily's school organized a community showcase featuring student projects and performances. Ethan arrived early, carrying flowers for Olivia and a small congratulatory card for Lily. The school gymnasium buzzed with families taking photographs and celebrating their children. For a while, everything felt normal. Lily proudly presented her science project while Ethan and Olivia listened. Then the evening took an unexpected turn. Near the entrance, several parents began discussing a business magazine that one of them had brought along. The cover featured a major story about one of the fastest-growing companies in America, Ethan's company. He noticed it immediately and hoped nobody else would connect the dots. Unfortunately, luck finally ran out. One father studying the magazine glanced toward Ethan. Then he looked back at the cover, then back at Ethan again. His eyes widened. Wait a second, the man said. I know who you are. The words seemed to echo across the room. Ethan felt his stomach drop. Several nearby parents turned to look. The man stepped forward, holding up the magazine. You are Ethan Carter, the CEO. Silence followed. Olivia's face went completely still. She took the magazine from the man's hands and looked at the cover. There was no blurry photograph this time. No uncertainty. Just a clear image of Ethan standing beneath a headline about billion-dollar expansion plans. Slowly, Olivia raised her eyes toward him. Is this true? She asked quietly. Ethan knew there was no point denying it anymore. Yes, he answered. The hurt that crossed her face was worse than any reaction he had imagined. Not anger. Not shock. Hurt. How long? She asked. Since the beginning, Ethan admitted. Olivia looked away for a moment as if trying to process everything. So all this time, every conversation, every answer, every story, Ethan stepped forward. Olivia, please let me explain. But she shook her head. I do not care that you are wealthy. Her voice trembled slightly. I care that you never trusted me enough to tell me who you really were. Then she took Lily's hand and walked toward the exit, leaving Ethan standing alone as the realization hit him harder than ever before. The secret he had protected for so long had finally cost him the people who mattered most. The weeks that followed felt longer than any business crisis Ethan had ever faced. Olivia stopped answering his calls. His messages remained unread. Even the occasional updates he used to receive from Lily disappeared. For the first time in years, success offered no solution. Money could not repair trust. Influence could not erase disappointment. Every evening, Ethan found himself replaying their conversations, searching for the moment he should have told the truth. Eventually, he realized there was only one thing left to do. He needed to stop defending his decision and start accepting responsibility for it. 1 month after the school event, Ethan made a choice that surprised his entire executive team. During a major company town hall meeting streamed to employees nationwide, he stepped away from prepared remarks and spoke. Honestly, he discussed leadership, mistakes, and accountability. Then he admitted that fear had influenced some of the most important personal decisions of his life. He did not mention Olivia by name. He did not share private details. But for the first time, he publicly acknowledged that protecting himself from disappointment had caused him to hurt someone he deeply respected. The clip spread online faster than anyone expected. Several news outlets covered the speech. Ethan ignored the attention. The speech was never intended for the public. It was intended for one person. A few days later, Olivia finally contacted him. The message was brief. She agreed to meet for coffee. Nothing more. Ethan arrived early and waited nervously. When Olivia entered the cafe, she looked calm but cautious. The easy comfort they once shared was gone. At least for now. They sat across from each other in silence for several moments. Finally, Ethan spoke. I am sorry. Olivia listened without interrupting. Ethan continued. He explained how years of failed relationships had convinced him that people often cared more about his wealth than his character. He described how he began hiding his identity to protect himself. Then he admitted the hardest truth of all. At some point, protecting myself became more important than trusting other people, he said. And that was unfair to you. Olivia stared at her coffee for a long moment. Do you know what hurt the most? She asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. I kept giving you chances to tell me. The words landed heavily. Because he knew she was right. I know, he said. And I failed every one of them. For the first time since they met, tears appeared in Olivia's eyes. I never needed a billionaire, she said softly. I just wanted an honest man. Ethan felt the weight of those words settle deep inside him. After a long silence, Olivia reached into her bag and removed a folded piece of paper. It was the original bookstore receipt where she had written her phone number months earlier. Lily wanted me to give this back to you, she said. Ethan looked down at the worn receipt. Then he noticed something written on the back in a child's handwriting. The message was simple. We miss you. And in that moment, Ethan realized there might still be hope, but only if he proved through actions rather than promises that he deserved a second chance. The note from Lily remained in Ethan's wallet for months. He carried it everywhere, reading the simple words whenever doubt threatened to take over. He understood that rebuilding trust would not happen through grand gestures or expensive gifts. If Olivia and Lily were ever going to welcome him back into their lives, it would happen because he consistently showed them who he really was. So that is exactly what he did. He respected Olivia's boundaries. He stopped trying to force conversations. Instead, he focused on being present whenever opportunities naturally appeared. Occasionally, he attended community events where Lily participated. Sometimes he volunteered at local programs that supported student education. Little by little, the uncomfortable distance between them began to soften. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came a school performing arts showcase. Lily had been preparing for weeks. One afternoon, she surprised Ethan with a text message from Olivia's phone. It contained only 6 words. You should come to the performance. Ethan stared at the message for several seconds before smiling. The invitation felt small, but he understood its significance. It was the first real step forward. On the evening of the performance, the auditorium filled with proud families and excited students. Ethan arrived early and quietly took a seat near the back. He did not want to create attention or pressure. He simply wanted to support Lily. As the program began, students performed music, speeches, and creative presentations. Eventually, Lily walked onto the stage. She looked confident and composed. Ethan could not stop smiling. After the performance ended, families gathered in the lobby. Ethan remained where he was, uncertain whether he should approach. Then he heard a familiar voice. You came. He turned and saw Olivia standing beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan nodded. I would not have missed it. Olivia looked toward the crowd where Lily was laughing. With classmates. She was hoping you would be here. The conversation felt easier than it had in months. Not perfect, not completely healed, but honest. As they talked, Lily suddenly appeared and wrapped both arms around Ethan. I knew you would come, she said. Ethan hugged her back carefully. I am proud of you. Lily smiled before running off again. Olivia watched her daughter disappear into the crowd. Then she looked at Ethan. She never stopped believing in people, Olivia said softly. Including you. Ethan took a slow breath. I am still trying to earn that. Olivia nodded. I know. They stood together in comfortable silence. Finally, Olivia reached for his hand. It was a simple gesture, but one that carried months of forgiveness, growth, and understanding. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. In that moment, he realized something important. The greatest mistake of his life had not been hiding his wealth. It had been believing that money was the reason people stayed or left. Olivia had never fallen in love with a billionaire. Lily had never admired a successful executive. They cared about the man who showed up, listened, and stayed. As the auditorium slowly emptied around them, Ethan felt a sense of peace he had spent years searching for. Not because everything was perfect, not because every wound had disappeared, but because he finally understood that the most valuable things in life could never be measured by a bank account. And surrounded by the 2 people who had changed him forever, he knew he had found something far greater than success. He had found home.